Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. This is the first video I've done in a while. It's been a super busy couple weeks and I do apologize for that, but regardless, my goal is to continue being consistent this year. So with that being said, we're hopping right back into this with a slightly different video because I wanted to create a video that's a little bit more off topic from the normal uploads, but at the same time very in tune with what this entire channel is about, and that's just creating videos, telling stories. So this video is actually going to be a little bit more techie because I'm upgrading the computer system that I'm using. Believe it or not, up to this point, I've been running everything off of a fully spec'd out MacBook Pro. It's the 16-inch 2019 version, I believe. I'll throw up the specs right here so you can see exactly which model I have and what I'm using. So I guess the first thing to address is what led me to actually make the change and upgrade from the current MacBook that I'm using. It is phenomenal. It's done a great job, especially for a MacBook. Really impressive that a machine so small can handle such an incredible workload that I throw at it, because I'm doing a lot of video editing through Premiere Pro sometimes, which is obviously heavier on the CPU, but also a lot of the stuff built into Resolve, like the noise reduction and OFX plugins, those are also very GPU intensive. So I knew when I got this computer, which I wasn't grading as much then, but I knew when I got it, I needed it to be able to handle a lot, pretty much anything I could throw at it. So in 2019, I think is when I bought this, and I just spec'd it out to the max. I think the only thing I didn't upgrade fully was the hard drive, because I knew everything I was doing was on a backup drive or an external drive. So the internal drive, I didn't really need like the 8 terabyte option. So the reason I'm upgrading now is that most of my work isn't really on the go. It's all pretty much right here in this office space, and I find that my workflow has kind of been limited by a portable machine in the sense that it tends to fall asleep. The battery doesn't really get all the way charged when I'm pulling heavy workloads out of it because so much other stuff is just plugged in. So not all that power goes to the MacBook. The number of ports, I mean, yeah, you can add like a power dock and hub and everything, but that's kind of just like fixing problems that I wouldn't have if I was working with an actual desktop setup. So then the search began, what will I be replacing this with? Well, at first I was thinking Mac Pro, but when you get into it, to really build it out for what you need, you're looking at like $15,000 on up. So that wasn't gonna work. Then I thought iMac Pro, but iMac Pro started at $6,000. That's also pretty expensive. So then I went, okay, let me just wait for the new MacBook with the M1 chip. And when they released those, they were only the 13-inch, which I needed a 16-inch because the 13-inch is great, don't get me wrong, like it's a great computer and I'll probably use it as my assist station and just my on-the-go rig, but it's not enough for an absolute like beast of a machine that I'm gonna need and a reliable workhorse to be here running all day long, really doing those longer renders, and just the heavy workflow that I'm gonna be needing. So I actually started looking into a custom built PC, and I know a lot of you are gonna throw a lot of comments because it is a great option. A custom built PC is definitely a great bang for your buck. When you build them out, they can be absolute beasts, but I wasn't gonna devote a whole lot of time into figuring out how to build my own PC and just doing all the research for the parts because I don't have the patience or the time for that. I did really find it a lot more interesting this time around, kind of looking through all the parts and figuring out what I would need. So I guess it is kind of growing on me and I'm not ruling it out in the future. But I also just love the Apple ecosystem. Everything I have is Apple, and it just makes sense to keep my main workstation an Apple Mac. After doing a little more research, I had a couple friends of mine also tell me that the iMac was the way to go. And up until I think 2020, the iMac was like a good machine. The iMac Pro was really what you needed, but the iMac really wasn't enough to get professional jobs done on a regular basis. And granted, you could do a little video editing, but you'd have to really build it up to be what you need it to be for a color grading workstation, just to run everything you see here. It really couldn't even match up with the MacBook Pro that was spec'd out. I didn't look into that too much and I didn't consider that a valuable option until I had some friends starting to recommend it. So I looked into it, I watched some videos on YouTube. There's a great series of playlists. I think these guys made like 20 videos comparing the spec'd out 2020 iMac 27-inch model with the MacBook Pro that I actually have, as well as the iMac Pro and probably the Mac Pro as well, I believe. After seeing those benchmarks, it was really compelling. So that is when I decided to pull the trigger. So I've sold my MacBook Pro. I'm still waiting on my replacement for that machine to arrive so that I can send this one off because I can't really afford to be down multiple days. But I guess I wanted to hop on here and explain a few things as to why I chose that and why I think it's also a great option for you. Because of the price point, I only spent, I think, spec'd out $3,100. Now you can upgrade the RAM from Apple's website to up to 128 gigs. That's gonna cost you, I think, $2,400 to do so. That is absurd. So thankfully Apple left the little back panel on the iMacs, which I think they go back to like 2009 that they started doing this, maybe 2012. where you can pop open that little back panel and you have access to all the RAM. You can just pull those cards out and then insert your own RAM at a much cheaper cost. So I am going with the 8 gigabytes of RAM from Apple's just because it's the cheapest option. And then when that arrives, I'll also have my 64 gigs of OWC RAM, which I will use to replace the 8 gigs that it comes with. So I'm gonna try 64 gigs at first. And if I see there's really any need for more, then I'll add another 64, so we'll have 128. And at that point, I think we'll be fine. But that's just, more potential videos coming up down the road to give you guys as much information as you need to make your next decision. And now that I think is a great segue into what about the M1 iMacs? And that's very true. It's a great point. Apple has officially stated that within the next 2 years and almost 18 months at this point, their ecosystem is going to be entirely built on the M1 chips. Now, yes, they will be replacing all of the Intel Macs with the M1 Macs, and that does include the iMac. And I've seen a lot of beautiful renders of what those might look like. Very exciting stuff. But with that being said, why would I order an Intel Mac just on the cusp of them releasing the M1 Macs? Well, the reason is I really just needed a reliable, beefier system now, and I'm a little bit impatient. That's, I guess, the short answer. But the long answer is really that it's still a great purchase. It's not going to be obsolete anytime soon for 99% of what anybody is doing in terms of video editing. And it's definitely going to accomplish everything I need out of it for the next year or so. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm not going to sell it whenever they do release the M1 Max, but I will probably wait a little while because not everything is going to be perfectly fluid on the M1 Max. Granted, DaVinci Resolve has been flawless on the M1 Max, so there's no real fear there, but a lot of other programs are still going to take a little bit of time to be fully adopted by the M1 Max and vice versa. So these are the specs I ordered the iMac with. Really, it's just a video editor's iMac. I went with the 1 terabyte internal SSD, but I really don't like to keep a whole lot on the local drives. Usually I keep things on backup drives and external hard drives. So I think that's going to wrap up my spiel here on why I'm upgrading my system, and to just kind of brag on this MacBook Pro 16-inch that has been a champion for the past 2 years for me. I know that its new owner is going to be very happy with it because I was just constantly blown away for the past 2 years at what it could handle. Never had any problems with it. It never once just shut down on me. It never really froze up other than using Premiere. Now, because I am going to be having an extra display now with the iMac, I'm going to have to be reworking how this setup looks. So I'll keep you guys updated on that. So be sure to follow me on Instagram to keep up with all those updates. But also I'll be tuning back in here on YouTube to give you guys more updates on how the new iMac is performing compared to this 2019 16-inch MacBook Pro that was fully spec'd out. Now, I know that based on other people's reviews, these two computers are very, very close in terms of capabilities and speeds, but a lot of what I'm looking to improve on through this upgrade is functionality, and that's what the iMac brings for my needs. Now, this is certainly not a one-size-fits-all thing, so definitely do your research whenever it comes to making your decision on which workstation best suits your needs. But as a colorist, editor, and DP, that has been my explanation on why I'm choosing right now to upgrade from a MacBook Pro to the 2020 iMac in 2021 when we're just on the cusp of the M1 iMacs being revealed. I'm not really worried about losing a bunch of money on this purchase because honestly I think it's going to resell very well whenever I do decide to sell it, but also it is an investment. It's a tool that's going to help me get my projects done faster, which helps me pay it off faster. And so because of that, I'm not really worried about taking a hit in the depreciation of this iMac when the new M1 iMacs are revealed. So I know this video is pretty different and off topic from my typical coloring stuff, but I do enjoy these kind of videos and these topics and discussing these topics here openly on YouTube. So if you guys enjoyed it as well, please leave a comment letting me know. And with that, I will see you guys in the next one.